Hey there, friend. Tonight we're going to wander into a time that's darker, grittier, and far less romantic than the picture books would have you believe. Forget shining nights, golden banquets, and perfect princess towers. Tonight's journey is through mud, smoke, hunger, and the strange little rituals that made up daily life in the Middle Ages. And before you roll your eyes and think, ah yes, another history lecture, let me promise you, this isn't that. This is more like a slow, candlelit walk through the past. A story you can sink into while your own room grows quieter, softer, and more restful. Before we dive in, let me gently ask if this sort of calm storytelling is something you enjoy, something that helps you relax, drift, or maybe just smile at how absurd history could be, then consider subscribing, only if you really enjoy it. That way, we can spend more evenings together wandering through the old shadows of time. And I'd love to know, as always, where are you listening from tonight? Maybe you're in a city apartment, where the glow of streetlights leaks through the curtains. Maybe you're in a quiet countryside home, where crickets hum in the background. Or perhaps you're halfway across the world, curled up in a hotel bed, letting the story replace the chaos of the day. Wherever you are, I'm grateful you're here. Now, let's set the scene. If you can, dim the lights. Maybe light a candle, or just imagine one flickering at your bedside. If you've got a fan, switch it on for that soft hum in the background. Let the room be still. Let your phone rest. This is your time. Not to rush, not to perform, just to listen, to drift, to let an older world gently unfold in your mind. Because when you open your eyes in this story, it won't be in your familiar room. No soft sheets, no central heating, no friendly kettle boiling in the kitchen. When you wake here, you'll be somewhere else entirely. A wooden hut with a leaking thatch roof. A floor that's not carpet or polished wood, but packed dirt, damp and uneven. You'll hear not traffic, not neighbors, but the toll of a church bell, loud and merciless, dragging you from restless sleep. Congratulations! In a moment, you'll be opening your eyes in the year 1325. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so are the fleas. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin. You open your eyes to the sound of a bell, not a soft alarm tone, not a cheerful jingle, but a heavy, ironclad clang rolling through the misty air. It's the church bell, your medieval alarm clock, and it does not believe in snooze buttons. Its message is simple: wake up, repent, and get to work. The first thing you notice is not the sound though, it's the feeling. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a half-rotten straw mattress. The straw has collapsed into lumps, some sharp, some damp, and all alive with movement. Fleas jump, lice crawl, and the smell, well, it's not lavender. It's the lingering perfume of animals, mold, and last winter's sweat. Sheets, pillows, those are fairy tales. What you have is a wool blanket, so heavy with grime, it could double as a farm animal. Your body aches. You're 22 years old, which by medieval standards is edging into middle age. Your joints crack, as if you're a grandfather. Your back feels like it has slept on stone, which it practically has, given how thin your bedding is. You try to stretch, but the cold air bites your skin. The fire burned out hours ago, and your breath fogs in the damp chill. As your eyes adjust, you take in your home. One room, no windows. The walls lean like they're tired of standing. The floor is dirt, pressed hard by feet and hooves. Because yes, the animals live with you. A goat in the corner shifts and grumbles. A chicken flaps its wings. Somewhere nearby, a child coughs. Privacy is a concept you've never heard of. Your family, livestock and insects, are your constant companions. And then there's the smell. It's not one smell, it's a symphony. Smoke that never fully clears from the hearth. Stale beer soaking into the floor. The goat's musk, the chicken's droppings. The sweat of too many bodies in too little space. And something you can't quite identify, which probably means you don't want to. There are no scented candles, no sprays, no fresh linen to absorb it. This is simply the fragrance of life, and it clings to everything. The roof above your head is thatch, which means it leaks when it rains. and it rained last night. One corner of the room is still damp, and the cold has seeped into your bones. If you're unlucky, you'll step out of bed and sink your bare foot into a patch of wet mud. If you're lucky, it will just be something the chickens left behind. Either way, the floor is less a surface and more an ecosystem. And yet you get up. You have to. Life doesn't pause because you're tired. The bell keeps ringing. Outside, the village stirs, voices calling through the mist. The day is beginning, and you are a part of it, whether you want to be or not. You pull yourself upright, scratch at your scalp, which only makes the lice itch more, and sit in the dim, smoky half-light. Your eyes burn, your muscles groan. You are alive, but it doesn't feel like much of a victory. This is morning in the Middle Ages. Not quiet, not restful, and certainly not private. But it is yours. And from here it only gets more difficult. You've managed to drag yourself upright, scratching and shivering in the smoky gloom. And now nature calls. Not politely, not with a gentle knock, but with urgency. The kind of urgency that makes you long desperately for the modern comfort of a bathroom. But this is the Middle Ages. There are no tiles, no flushing, no rolls of paper stacked neatly in a basket. Here, relieving yourself is less a private act and more a public adventure. If you're a peasant, your toilet is most likely a wooden bucket behind the house. It's already full, because Uncle Wolfstan had a bad turn after eating questionable turnips. The smell that rises when you lift the lid is not of this earth. It burns your eyes, curls your stomach, and convinces you that the devil himself must be hiding in there. But there is no alternative. You hold your breath, you do what must be done, and then comes the true medieval twist. You toss it into the street. Yes, the street. And tradition requires that you shout something like Garde-à-l'eau from the old French for watch out below, before upending the bucket out the window. Of course, no one ever moves fast enough. The result is that medieval town streets double as open sewers. They run with a mixture of human waste, animal droppings, and suspicious liquids you absolutely should not step in. Rats love it, fleas thrive in it, and you are stuck living right beside it. Now, if you're luckier, your village might have public latrines. Picture an outhouse without the out. A long bench with multiple holes, shoulder to shoulder with your neighbors. No dividers, no privacy. The smell is overwhelming, the air thick and damp. Small talk is optional, though most people avoid eye contact. Ventilation is non-existent, and the only thing keeping you alive in there is the fact that your nose eventually goes numb. Toilet paper doesn't exist, at least not the way you know it. Most people use straw, moss, rags, or if fortune smiles, a scrap of wool, sometimes nothing at all, which might explain why handshakes never really caught on in the Middle Ages. And what if you live in a castle? Surely that must be better. In some ways, yes. Castles often had garderobes, little stone closets built into the walls. A hole leads straight down into the moat, or into a pit beneath the tower. But here's the flaw. Your enemies know this. There are stories of attackers climbing up through the waste chute during sieges, entering quite literally through the back door, a deeply unpleasant way to storm a fortress. So whether you're a farmer, a monk, or even a nobleman, relieving yourself in the Middle Ages is rarely private, never clean, and always unpleasant. It is a humiliation ritual, performed daily, without exception. The floor is wet, the stone is slippery, and one misstep could land you face first in humanity's leftovers. And when you're finally finished, when you've escaped the stink and the flies, and wiped with something scratchy, you step back into the smoky morning air, grateful simply to breathe. The ordeal is over, at least until the next time your stomach turns. And remember, you still haven't brushed your teeth. You survived the toilet. Truly, that alone deserves applause. Your eyes water less, your stomach settles, and for a brief moment you allow yourself to dream of a reward. A warm breakfast, something hearty, filling, maybe even comforting. But this is the Middle Ages. The word comfort hasn't been invented yet. Breakfast, if you can even call it that, is a grim affair. There are no eggs and bacon sizzling in a pan, no steaming mug of coffee, no buttered toast glowing golden in the morning light. Instead, someone ladles into your wooden bowl a portion of pottage, and pottage is not food so much as an edible condition. It's a stew, technically, a thick, gloopy mixture of whatever ingredients could be scraped together in the last few days, or weeks, or months. Grains, root vegetables, beans if you're lucky, wilted greens if you're not. It's all tossed into the same pot that never really empties. New ingredients simply piled on top of whatever was left yesterday, or the day before, or last winter. You don't follow a recipe, you inherit a broth that never dies. You stir it with your wooden spoon, watching it cling like paste, and try not to think about how many generations of rats have nibbled from this pot while you slept. On the side you get bread, but not soft, fluffy bread with a crust that cracks delightfully. This loaf is a weapon, made of coarse rye or barley flour, often bulked up with whatever fillers could stretch it further. Ground acorns, sawdust, sometimes even clay. It's hard enough to break teeth, and it takes more effort to chew than it gives back in nourishment. You don't slice this bread, you negotiate with it. You dunk it in the pottage to soften it, gnaw at the corners, and try to imagine it tastes like more than bitter grain. And what do you drink with this feast? Not water, never water. The streams are alive with parasites, chamber pots, and unlucky animals floating belly up. Weak, cloudy ale, barely alcoholic, but boiled enough in brewing to kill most of the horrors lurking in raw water. Children drink it too. Everyone does. At sunrise, at midday, at supper, beer is the beverage of survival. It doesn't make you merry, it makes you less dead. If you're a peasant, that's the meal. If you're lucky, there might be a pinch of salt to season it. If you're truly fortunate, an onion, but meat, cheese, eggs, dream on. Those are luxuries for feast days, and for people with more land than you'll ever see. Fresh fruit, maybe for a week or two, when the orchard is heavy. Spices, pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, those cost more than your wages. So you sit on a stool, gnawing bread that could double as a roof tile, slurping pottage with the consistency of mud, and washing it down with ale that tastes like bitter grass. You're not delighted, you're not energized, you're simply not hungry anymore, and that's the best you can hope for. Breakfast in the Middle Ages doesn't lift you, it doesn't warm you, it simply happens to you, and then it's gone. And now, with your stomach filled with swamp stew and liquid bread, it's time to get dressed. Not that it will help. Your belly is full. Well, full in the way a wet sack of barley mash is full. And now it's time to prepare yourself for the day. You'd like to imagine a wardrobe, perhaps a small chest, neatly stacked with folded clothes. But in the Middle Ages, you own exactly one outfit. One. Not a choice, not a selection, just the single set of garments you wear until they rot off your body. It begins with a tunic, rough wool, scratchy against the skin, dyed in the dull shades of earth, because bright colors are expensive. If you're lucky, there's a linen shift underneath, softer, cooler, easier to wash. If you're unlucky, and most are, you go without, which means every inch of your skin rubs against wool, all day, every day. There is no laundry day. There's no basket waiting to be washed. Clothes are scrubbed only when they become unbearable, and even then the process is grueling. Water must be hauled from a well or stream, heated over fire, poured into a bucket, and mixed with ashes or lye to scrub out the filth. The fabric is beaten, wrung, and hung outside, where it may or may not dry before rain soaks it again. So instead, most people simply keep wearing the same thing. Stains grow, odors deepen, the wool stiffens into armor, but not the heroic kind. It clings with the smell of sweat, smoke, and last season's mud. The sleeves are frayed, the seams crooked, the hems stiff with dirt, and beneath it all, your skin itches, because you are not alone in your clothing. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs live there too. They crawl at your wrists, bite at your ankles, nest in the seams. Everyone has them. Peasants, nobles, monks, even kings. They are the true equalizers of medieval life. You scratch at your scalp until it burns, but there is no relief. Some people rub herbs into their tunics, hoping to repel the pests. Others simply resign themselves to being eaten alive, one red welt at a time. And then there's footwear. If you have shoes at all, they're made of untreated leather, thin and stiff, barely stitched together. They leak in the rain, split at the seams, and offer as much support as walking barefoot. Most peasants don't own them, and so their feet are bare, through mud, dung, sharp stones, and the kinds of puddles that harbor diseases with names you don't want to learn. Calluses grow thick, but they don't protect against everything. So now you stand there, dressed but not dignified, layered in itchy wool, crawling with insects, barefoot on dirt. Your clothes do not flatter you, they do not express you, they simply cover you, most of the time, and keep you from freezing. You take a deep breath, scratch once more at the neckline, and remind yourself this is your best, this is your only. And now that you are clothed in discomfort, it's time to greet the day with a smile, or at least the medieval approximation of one. Except, of course, smiling comes with its own problems. You're dressed, scratchy wool, stiff seams, lice gnawing in secret places, but at least you're ready. And now, if this were a modern morning, you'd step into the bathroom, reach for a toothbrush, and freshen your smile. Except in the Middle Ages, smiles are dangerous, not because of what they reveal emotionally, but because of what they reveal dentally. There are no toothbrushes, no toothpaste, no floss, no refreshing swish of minty mouthwash. Oral hygiene is a concept still waiting to be born. Some people chew on twigs to scrape at the worst of it. Others rinse with vinegar or wine, thinking it cleans, but most simply let time and decay do their work. By your mid-20s, your teeth already look like relics dug out of a crypt, cavities spread unchecked, dark holes you can feel when you probe with your tongue. Your gums are swollen, red, and sometimes bleed without reason. The food you chew, hard bread, gritty porridge, acts like sandpaper, grinding enamel into dust. And sugar, while not yet common for peasants, is making its way into noble kitchens. The wealthy get to rot their teeth faster, while the poor do it slowly with coarse grains and years of chewing. Toothaches are constant companions, a dull throb in the jaw that never leaves, the kind that keeps you awake at night, gnawing at your sanity. There is no ibuprofen, no gentle dentist in gloves. If the pain becomes unbearable, the solution is brutal simplicity. The barber surgeon, the same man who trims your beard, will sit you in a wooden chair, grip your tooth with an iron hook, and wrench it out by candlelight. No anesthesia, no sterilization, just screaming, sweating, and hope. Sometimes the tooth comes free. Sometimes part of the jawbone does too. Infection, that's almost guaranteed. And without antibiotics, infection is often a death sentence. Imagine it, dying from a toothache. In this world it happens. Bad breath is everywhere. It clings to every conversation, every kiss, every whisper in the dark. No one escapes it. Lovers tolerate it. Priests endure it. Families accept it as part of daily life. And so, if you're single, you're not judged by your smile. You're judged by your livestock and your land. Romance blooms not with a grin, but with a trade. So you don't smile much, not in joy, not in jest, not in welcome. You keep your lips pressed, your jaw tight, hiding the battlefield inside your mouth. Because every smile is a risk, a glimpse of decay, a warning of pain, a reminder that even the simplest pleasures, like a laugh shared in the morning sun, come with sharp, unrelenting consequences. You pull your cloak tighter, step outside, and let the air sting your teeth. Behind your lips, your mouth is a ruin, but you've got work to do, and no one here expects you to grin through it. The bell is still ringing, distant but insistent, and now that you've eaten your swampy breakfast and scratched your way into your single itchy outfit, it's time to do the one thing your entire life revolves around. Not the kind of work that earns promotions, titles, or even recognition. The kind of work that simply keeps you alive one more day. If you are like 90% of people in medieval Europe, you're a peasant. That means the land you work on does not belong to you. It belongs to your lord, whose name you might never even hear spoken. In return for being allowed to live on his land, you owe him everything: your labor, your harvest, your loyalty, and a portion of whatever pitiful scraps you manage to keep. The sun is your timekeeper. You rise when it rises, and you stop when it disappears. 6 days a week, every week, with Sunday reserved for church, though even then, if the harvest is urgent, you might be marched back into the fields. There is no weekend. There are no holidays, not in the sense of leisure. Life is measured by planting and reaping, by surviving the cycle of seasons without starving. Your tools are primitive: a wooden hoe, a blunt sickle, a plow drawn by oxen if you are fortunate, or by your own aching body if you are not. You dig furrows, scatter seed, bend and bend and bend again, until your spine creaks like a door hinge. You pull weeds with your bare hands. You carry water in buckets until the skin between your fingers splits and blisters. You know every inch of this soil, every stubborn root and treacherous rock, because your sweat has soaked it year after year. Children join in early. By the age of 5, a child can fetch water, chase birds from the fields, or carry small bundles of wood. School is for the wealthy. For you, childhood is just an apprenticeship in survival. Women work the fields too, often right alongside men, but when the day is done, they have no reprieve. They cook, spin wool, mend clothes, care for infants, and keep the household from collapsing into chaos. There is no division of labor that spares anyone. Everyone works until exhaustion, and what of accidents? They are constant: a twisted ankle in a hole hidden beneath tall grass, a cut from a rusty blade that festers within days, a fever that drains the strength from your body until you collapse in the dirt. There is no workers' compensation, no sick leave. You work until you drop, and if you stop working, you don't eat. It is that simple. There is no thought of career. There is no dream of moving upward. The soil is both your master and your prison. Each day you claw at it, knowing full well it may yield enough to keep you breathing, or it may betray you with rot, pests, or frost. And yet, despite all of it, you keep going, because the sun is moving higher, and your hands know their rhythm, because survival leaves no room for rebellion, because to stop is to die, and death is never more than a single bad harvest away. You wipe your brow, bend your back again, and pray the soil is merciful. You bend and scrape, hoe and haul, and just when you think your back is about to splinter in half, you look up and realize the real boss of your life isn't your lord or your aching body, it's the weather. And in the Middle Ages, the weather isn't just inconvenient, it's punishment. Let's start with winter. Your hut has no insulation, no central heating, no windows sealed against the wind, just rough wood and thatch, with gaps wide enough to throw a chicken through. You huddle by the hearth, but firewood is scarce and expensive. Gather it from the wrong forest, and you could be fined, or worse. So the fire burns low, sputtering on scraps, and your breath clouds the air indoors. Your nose freezes while you sleep. Your toes ache with cold that never leaves. Frostbite isn't diagnosed, it's just called bad luck. And when the snow buries the fields, hunger creeps in with it. Fast forward to summer, surely it must be better. But in summer, your hut becomes an oven. Thick wool clothes cling to your skin, soaked with sweat. To remove them would be scandalous. And besides, the sun itself burns like punishment on bare skin. There's no shade in the fields, no wide-brimmed hats, no sunscreen, no relief. You bake from dawn to dusk, your head pounding, your vision blurring. Heat stroke is called, taking a bad turn, and it can kill you before you know what's happening. And then there's the in-between, the rain, the mud, the endless damp. Your roof leaks, your floor turns into sludge, your clothes never quite dry. Every step outside means shoes, if you own any, are caked with muck, and bare feet are pricked by sharp stones or sunk into cold puddles, alive with disease. The weather is never just background. It dictates survival. A late frost can starve your family. A storm can flatten the harvest. A dry spell can turn your fields into dust, leaving you with nothing but turnips and prayer. You watch the skies as if they were scripture, scanning clouds with desperate eyes. And yet, whether you're freezing in the brittle dark of winter or baking in the merciless sun of summer, one truth remains: the fields won't wait. You work through it, aching, shivering, swatting flies, skin raw from the elements, because the weather doesn't care about you, and your Lord doesn't care about the weather. The harvest must come, no matter what the sky brings. So you keep going, one blistered hand in front of the other, knowing that the heavens above aren't blessings or curses, they're simply your reality. The sun is higher now, sweat running down your temples, the weight of the morning pressing into your shoulders. You're thirsty, your mouth is dry, your tongue heavy, instinct says water. But in the Middle Ages, water is not your friend. The stream looks clear, bubbling over stones, glinting in the sunlight. It could almost be beautiful, but you know better. Upstream, someone has emptied a chamber pot. A pig carcass may be floating just out of sight. Parasites swarm invisibly. Bacteria, though no one can name it yet, waits for you in every mouthful. One careless sip can mean days of cramping agony, or death. That's why beer is safer. Not the frothy, golden drink of modern pubs, but weak, cloudy, small ale. It has just enough alcohol to kill most of what lurks in the water. Adults drink it. Children drink it. At breakfast, at noon, at night. No one raises a mug in celebration. It's just survival in liquid form. Wine exists too, but unless you're wealthy, you'll never taste it. For you, beer is the only safe bet. Bathing, that's worse. People whisper that washing too often opens your pores and lets disease seep in. Dirt, they believe, is protection. To scrape it away is to invite illness. And so most people wear their filth proudly. A crust of sweat and soot that hardens over time. Bathhouses do exist in some towns. Communal tubs of hot water where neighbors sit shoulder to shoulder, gossiping while the steam rises. But bathhouses also gather suspicion. Priests mutter that too much nakedness leads to sin. Some become notorious for less than holy activities. Slowly they're shut down. Slowly, bathing itself becomes taboo. If you do decide to wash, it's a production. Haul water from the well, heat it over a fire, fill a wooden tub that leaks between the slats. By the time it's ready, you're exhausted, and so is your firewood pile. So more often than not, you don't bother. You let the sweat dry, the smell grow, and the insects crawl. Even rainwater isn't safe. Collected in barrels, it becomes a playground for mosquitoes, algae, and the droppings of every bird that perches above. You splash it on your face, maybe, but you know better than to drink it. So you take a gulp of ale, bitter and flat, and swallow it with gratitude. Not because it tastes good, but because it won't kill you, at least not immediately. And with thirst barely eased, your body aching, and the day stretching endlessly ahead, you realize something else. When illness comes, and it will, there will be no comfort, no safe cure, no clean relief, only medieval medicine, a world of leeches, prayers, and pain. The air feels heavy now, damp and sour, and you cough once, twice, a scratch deep in your throat, a tickle, nothing more. But in the Middle Ages, even the smallest illness can become a sentence. Because when you need help, you don't find doctors, you find something else entirely. Medicine here is less about healing and more about balancing your humors. The body, it is believed, is made up of 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Too much of one, too little of another, and sickness follows. Your cure, then, is not to fight disease, but to drain it away, rebalance the invisible soup inside you. So if you have a fever, clearly you have too much blood. The solution, bloodletting. A barber surgeon, yes, the same man who cuts your hair, ties your arm, slices your vein with a dull blade, and drains you into a bowl, or he presses a fat leech against your skin and lets it swell on your lifeblood. If you faint, that means it's working. If you are melancholic, too full of black bile, then you'll be given purges, laxatives, emetics, things to make your body empty itself in every possible way. Sometimes herbs, sometimes concoctions of ground insects, sometimes just prayers and cold compresses, while your family wonders whether to start carving your coffin. If you break a bone, you are in real trouble. There is no anesthesia, except perhaps enough ale to drown your senses. Surgery is done with knives that have seen more battles than washings. Tools are heated in fire, not to sterilize them, but to make them look impressive, frightening. Limbs are sawed off while you scream. Wounds are stitched with whatever thread is at hand. Infection is inevitable, and when the fever comes, there is nothing to stop it. Doctors don't know about germs. They don't understand contagion. They think disease comes from bad air, or worse, from God's displeasure with your sins. A stomachache must be lustful thoughts. A rash may be envy. The treatment is confession, penance, and a few whispered prayers over your shivering body. And if none of it works, if the bloodletting, the leeches, the prayers, and the potions fail, then the priest is summoned to give you last rites. At this point, your family prepares for the final, guaranteed cure, death. But every now and then, someone survives, not because the treatment worked, but because the body endured in spite of it. And when that happens, the doctor takes the credit, the priest praises God, and the leech is promoted from apprentice to master. In this world, medicine doesn't heal, it gambles, and more often than not, the house wins. The day wears on, your back groans, your hands blister, your head aches from the sun, or the cold, and at last, when the shadows lengthen, you stagger back to your hut. Your stomach growls. You think, surely, here is some comfort. A hot meal, a small reward for your labor. But in the Middle Ages, dinner is no gift, it's a test. Food preservation is primitive. There is no refrigeration, no airtight jars, no freezers humming in the corner. Meat spoils within days. If you have any, it hangs in the rafters, swarmed by flies, marinated in smoke and salt, and sometimes nibbled by rats before you do. A stew might stretch it further, the boiling disguising how far past fresh it has gone. But if the smell doesn't warn you, the cramps later will. Bread is the cornerstone of your diet, but even bread is a gamble. In years of poor harvest, flour is stretched with bark, acorns, even powdered clay. Loaves are heavy, bitter, and dangerous. And if your rye has been touched by ergot, a fungus that thrives in damp fields, then each bite delivers something worse than hunger. Convulsions, hallucinations, a dance of madness that can sweep through whole villages. Eating bread laced with ergot is like swallowing poison and waiting to see if it spares you. Vegetables appear only in season, and one vegetable appears always: the turnip, boiled, mashed, floating in stew. Endless, bland, pale turnips. On feast days, maybe peas. On rare lucky nights, beans, but mostly turnips. Fruit ripens in autumn, but rots quickly. Dried fruit is rare. Sugar, rarer still. Honey exists, but it's precious. Stolen from wild hives with smoke and bravery. Nobles hoard it. Peasants dream of it. Dairy is a gamble too. Fresh milk sours in hours. Cheese and butter last longer, but they're tangy, pungent, and often crawling with bacteria. Still you eat them, because hunger is louder than disgust. And spices, pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, they are treasures worth more than gold, carried across continents at staggering cost. A pinch of pepper could be a month's wages. So instead your food is seasoned with smoke, with onion, if fortune smiles, with salt, if you've managed to barter some. Flavor is not the goal, survival is. There is danger in the very act of eating. Game animals belong to your lord. Catch a rabbit, snare a deer, and you risk fines, prison, even execution. Poaching isn't just theft, it's rebellion. So you stick to scraps that might poison you, but won't get you hanged. So you sit by the fire, chewing bread that grinds your teeth, spooning stew that tastes of damp roots and faint rot, sipping your weak ale. It fills you, yes, but it also reminds you in this world, even food is not safe. You finish, set your bowl aside, and pray you make it through the night, without fever, without cramps, without the creeping dread of poison in your belly. The meal sits heavy in your stomach, gritty bread and bitter ale weighing you down. You'd like to rest, to close your eyes, and let the aches fade, but you can't, because in the Middle Ages, faith is not an option. It is life. It controls your day, your week, your seasons, your very breath. The church bell rings again, not for work now, but for prayer. Its iron voice commands the whole village to turn toward God, and you do. Everyone does, because not going means sin. Missing Mass means suspicion, failing to bow, failing to confess, failing to fast. It all marks you as disobedient, as dangerous, as someone who might invite damnation on everyone. Religion fills every corner of your existence. Birth is blessed by priests. Marriage is sanctioned by priests. Death is closed with priests. You cannot read the Bible yourself. It's in Latin, the language of monks and scholars. You rely entirely on the priest's words, his interpretations, his reminders that every mistake carries eternal consequences. Tithes are demanded, 1/10 of everything you own, your grain, your chickens, your labor. Even if you have nothing, you are expected to give. You are spiritually in debt from the moment you draw breath. And the punishments for straying are vivid. Hell is not abstract. It is described in detail: rivers of fire, demons with iron claws, lakes of boiling blood, screams echoing without end. If the plague doesn't frighten you, damnation will. Holidays exist, yes, but they are holy days. Dozens throughout the year, each demanding fasting, confession, and penance. They are breaks from labor, but not from obedience. Joy itself is suspect. Laughter must be careful, questions must be silenced. Doubt is dangerous. Heresy is punished with fire. Witches are hunted. Skeptics are beaten back into line. Even thinking against the church is a crime you might not survive. So you kneel, you fold your hands, even if your knuckles are raw and aching from the fields. You bow your head, even if your back screams from bending all day. You repeat the prayers, the chants, the words handed down from a book you cannot read, hoping your voice is loud enough for God and quiet enough for the priest. Faith is not private here. It is a performance, a requirement, a tax, a threat. You may dream of something better, something freer, but for now you have no choice. The church owns not just your time, but your soul. The prayers end, your knees sore from the hard floor, your stomach still uneasy from supper. You'd like to think faith is the harshest master you'll answer to. But beyond the church doors, another shadow waits, justice. And in the Middle Ages, justice is not about fairness. It is about fear. Crime is everywhere. A loaf of bread stolen, a lie told, a neighbor accused of gossiping too freely. Every slight, every suspicion, every rumor can become a crime. And when it does, punishment follows. Brutal, public, unforgettable. Steal, and you might lose a hand. Lie, and your tongue may be pierced or cut. Gossip too much, and the scold's bridle, a heavy iron mask with a gagging bar, is strapped to your face for the village to laugh at. Violence is common, but when sanctioned by authority, it becomes a show. Trials exist, but they are not trials, as you know them. They are ordeals. To prove innocence, you plunge your hand into boiling water to retrieve a stone. If the burn heals without infection in 3 days, you are innocent. If not, you are guilty. Another version, you are thrown into a river. If you sink, you are innocent, though dead. If you float, you are guilty, and your punishment awaits. It is justice as spectacle, a divine coin toss with your life as the wager. And when the sentence is death, the execution is never private. It is a gathering, a crowd, an event. Hangings, beheadings, burnings, each one performed before eager villagers. Families come to watch. Children see it early. Some bring food as though it were a festival. This is entertainment, a warning, a ritual of blood. Domestic violence is not only common, but sanctioned. A husband may beat his wife, a master his servant, a father his children. The law permits it. Neighbors may shake their heads, but no one interferes. Pain is correction. Pain is expected. Even war feels like an extension of this theater. Local feuds, territorial disputes, crusades called in the name of God. Men march away to kill strangers, to burn towns, to carve blood into borders that never last. The violence is constant, casual, woven into the very rhythm of existence. Here, punishment is not a breakdown of society. It is society. It is how power is shown, how authority is performed, how obedience is hammered into every bone. And as you watch someone dragged to the gallows, the crowd pressing close, you realize, in the Middle Ages, pain is never wasted. It is a lesson, and you are always expected to learn. So far, you've seen what it's like to be a peasant in the Middle Ages. The filth, the hunger, the endless work, the punishments that hang over every moment. It's bad enough, but if you are a woman, life is harder still. It is survival on hard mode, with no cheats, no restarts, and no mercy. From birth, your path is set. You are not raised to chase dreams, but to serve. Education is unlikely, unless you are born into nobility and sent to a convent. More often, your lessons stop once you've learned how to churn butter, patch tunics, and obey without question. Marriage comes early, shockingly early by modern standards. Betrothal at 12, childbirth at 14, not because love calls, but because land and livestock must be exchanged, alliances secured, bloodlines extended. Your consent is not required, your body is not your own. Once married, you become property, your husband's tool for bearing heirs, keeping house, and feeding mouths. Your daily life is a crushing cycle: cooking, cleaning, tending animals, nursing infants, hauling water, weaving wool, working fields. You do everything men do, and everything men don't. And when you collapse at night, it is not to rest, but to prepare for the same tomorrow. Childbirth is perhaps the greatest terror. There is no prenatal care, no midwife with sterile instruments. A child may come easily, or it may come with agony. A breech birth, a fever, a hemorrhage, any one of these can end your life. Some women survive 10 pregnancies. Many die after one. The risk is constant, the pain unimaginable. And yet, survival brings no reprieve. A newborn is not the end of your work, but the beginning of more. Infants wail in huts filled with lice and smoke, and you must soothe them while stirring pottage, while scrubbing wool, while dragging wood from the forest. You do not rest, you cannot rest. Unmarried women are suspect. Widows are vulnerable. Outspoken women are dangerous. The label of witch hovers, waiting. Herbal knowledge, a sharp tongue, a glance given at the wrong time. Any of these can turn the village against you. And witches do not get warnings. They get ropes and flames. Even in the church, you are less. As a nun, you live under strict rule, your voice silenced, your body cloistered, your worth always measured against man's. The virgin is praised, but living women are not. You are judged, controlled, diminished, and still, somehow, women endure. They laugh when they can, sing songs while working, cradle babies with tenderness, find moments of strength in a life designed to break them. They suffer, yes, but they also carry. They keep villages alive, families fed, children raised. They are the spine of medieval life, even if history tries to forget them. But no matter how strong, no matter how vital, the truth remains. To be a woman here is to be expected to endure everything and complain about nothing. You've survived another day of toil and prayer, but what if you need to leave your village, to visit a market, to deliver goods, or perhaps, though rare, to journey to another town? In the Middle Ages, travel is not adventure. It is peril. The roads are not roads as you know them. They are little more than rutted tracks, churned to mud in rain, frozen hard in winter, baking to dust in summer. Wagons lurch and tip, feet sink and stumble, horses struggle. There are no signposts, no neat milestones, only landmarks, whispered from memory. A crooked oak, a stone shrine, a fork where the stream cuts through the hill, and danger waits at every turn. Bandits lurk in forests, knives hidden beneath cloaks, ready to rob the weak and kill the careless. Wolves prowl at the edges of fields, their eyes glinting in twilight. Even other travelers are suspect, for in a world where survival is thin, trust is a luxury. If you walk, your feet blister, your clothes soak, your body tires quickly. If you ride, you are marked as wealthy and thus a target. If you join a caravan, you are safer, but safety comes with cost and obligation. Inns are rare and rarely pleasant. A common house might offer straw on the floor, ale in a chipped mug, and a corner where rats won't bite too much. Payment could be coin, or it could be labor, or whatever goods you carry. Privacy is non-existent. Markets are noisy, filthy, and vital. People push together, trading chickens, hides, wool and news. Merchants shout prices. Guards keep half an eye. Pickpockets keep both. The air reeks of sweat, dung and roasted meat. For peasants, markets are overwhelming. A rare glimpse of wider life, a reminder of how small your world usually is. And beyond the market, the open road grows wilder still. The further you go, the less certain your return. A wrong path can leave you lost in forest or marsh. A storm can trap you in mud. Illness, injury, robbery, any of these can end your journey forever. Most people, therefore, never travel more than 10 miles from where they were born. Their whole lives play out within walking distance. The hut, the fields, the church, the Lord's manor.
Beyond that circle lies a world as strange and distant as another planet.
Travel is possible, but it is costly, dangerous, and rare. In the Middle Ages, home is not just where the heart is. It is where survival demands you stay. The sun sinks, shadows stretching across fields and huts, and at last the day's labor ends. You're exhausted, bone deep, marrow heavy, tired. But evening in the Middle Ages is not a time of comfort. It is simply a slower kind of survival. You shuffle back into your one-room hut, the same dirt floor, the same smoky air. The fire in the hearth is coaxed back to life, fed with whatever scraps of wood or dried dung could be gathered. Its smoke coils upward, darkening the beams, stinging your eyes. There is no chimney, only a hole in the roof, and even that doesn't carry it away fully. The air indoors is thick, sharp, suffocating. Your lungs ache, but without the fire, the cold would be worse. The meal is more of the same, pottage ladled from the eternal pot, bread chewed until your jaw hurts, ale poured weak and cloudy. It is fuel, nothing more. A family huddles together on benches or low stools, bowls in hand, speaking little. Words are saved for stories, for gossip, for songs passed down from memory. Light is precious. Candles exist, but they are rare, made of tallow, smoky and foul-smelling. A rushlight might burn, a reed dipped in fat, but it flickers fast and leaves more darkness than glow. So most work is done by the dim orange of firelight, shadows thick against the walls. Evening is when stories live. Tales of saints and sinners, of wolves in the forest, of ghosts in the churchyard. Some are warnings, some are amusements, all are reminders of a world you cannot see, yet cannot escape. Children listen with wide eyes. Adults nod, as if they too believe, or perhaps simply because they know that in a world, this harsh superstition feels safer than doubt. There are no books in your home, no parchment, no ink. If you cannot read, and almost no one can, your imagination is fed by voice alone. Oral history keeps the past alive. Oral warnings guard the future. Every tale carries weight, for it may be the only lesson your children inherit. When the bowls are emptied, when the fire burns low, you stretch out again on straw bedding. The same vermin crawl, the same cold leaks in, but exhaustion dulls it all. You close your eyes, listening to the sounds of the night, the crackle of embers, the whisper of wind through the thatch, the distant howl of a wolf. Night in the Middle Ages is not peaceful. It is long, uncertain, and always a little frightening, but it is what you have, and if you're lucky you'll wake again to see the bell drag you into another day. The fire burns low, shadows long, and as you lie on the straw, a cough rattles your chest. Not just tonight, not just this once. It's been coming for days. In the Middle Ages, sickness is not an intruder. It is a constant guest. Every breath carries risk. The smoke in your hut burns your lungs. The damp floor chills your bones. The lice on your scalp carry fevers. A cut from a sickle festers. A rat's flea bites, and days later, a lump swells in your armpit. You shiver, sweat, and soon your family whispers a word that strikes terror. Plague. The plague is not rare. It sweeps through towns like a storm. Black boils rising, blood seeping, people dying so quickly, graves cannot keep up. Whole villages vanish. Cities empty, their streets filled with the sound of carts dragging the dead. Bring out your dead, the cry goes, and the air is thick with despair. But even without plague, illness is everywhere. Malaria hums in marshlands. Tuberculosis scratches from within. Dysentery, spread through dirty water and food, leaves you weak, dehydrated, and sometimes gone within days. A simple cough can linger for months, dragging life from you slowly. Children are the most fragile. Nearly half never see their 5th birthday. Fevers, infections, bad milk, one unlucky winter, and they are gone. Mothers weep, fathers dig, and life moves on because grief cannot stop the harvest. There is no hospital, as you know it. Monasteries sometimes tend the sick, offering herbal concoctions, whispered prayers, or the laying on of hands, but herbs only soothe, not cure. Prayers may comfort, but they do not heal, and the monastery is as likely to blame your illness on sin as on sickness. If you can afford a doctor, you meet a man trained not in healing but in theory, blood, bile, phlegm. He prescribes leeches, purges, or charms. If you recover, it is thanks to God. If you die, it was God's will. Either way, his reputation survives, while you do not. Illness is not an interruption of life here. It is woven into it. You do not ask if you will fall sick. You ask when, and how badly. Some recover, scarred and weary, many do not. And every cough, every fever, every boil, every ache reminds you how thin the line is between today's labor and tomorrow's grave. So you lie awake, coughing in the smoke, listening to the breathing of your family, wondering which of you will still be here when the bell rings again. The cough lingers, your body aches, but sickness is not the only shadow pressing against the walls of your hut. Hunger gnaws too, constant and sharp. And in the Middle Ages, famine is never far away. One bad harvest can unravel everything. A late frost bites the shoots. Too much rain drowns the fields. Too little rain leaves them cracked and dry. Locusts descend, or rats chew their way through stores. The margin between enough food and no food at all is as thin as a blade of straw. When famine comes, it doesn't arrive quietly. First, prices rise. Bread costs double, then triple, then beyond what anyone can pay. Families barter whatever they have left, tools, clothing, even their children's labor, for a few hard loaves. Then when money and goods run out, the true famine begins. Meals shrink. The eternal pottage becomes thinner and thinner until it is little more than cloudy water with a few scraps floating inside. Bread is stretched with weeds, bark, even dirt to fill the belly. Turnips are boiled until their very smell makes you gag. And still, it isn't enough. Hunger changes people. Neighbors who once shared gossip now guard their doors, suspicious of every glance. Theft rises. Poaching spreads. Rumors of cannibalism creep in when the hunger is deepest. Whispers of children vanishing, of desperate acts done in the cold dark. Your body weakens quickly. Fat burns away. Muscle shrinks. Bones press against skin. Wounds won't heal. Infections spread faster. Fever grips harder. Children cry endlessly until their voices fade. Old men stop rising from their beds. Women miscarry from exhaustion. Famine doesn't kill all at once. It grinds you down, one gnawing day at a time, until even work in the fields becomes impossible. You collapse, your tools falling from your hands, your stomach clawing itself from the inside. And always, in famine, the church reminds you this is punishment. For sins, for pride, for disobedience. Priests tell you to fast, to pray, to accept. And so you do. You kneel, your belly hollow, your lips cracked, and you beg for mercy that never seems to come. When at last the famine breaks, when a harvest returns, you may survive, but you are not the same. The hollow ache lingers, the memory of it sharper than hunger itself, and you know deep down, it will return. Famine is not a stranger, it is a neighbor who always comes back, sooner or later, while you scratch at fleas in your straw bed and chew bread that chips your teeth. Someone else is living very differently. Up on the hill, in stone walls that loom above your wooden hut, resides your lord, and in the Middle Ages, the gulf between peasant and noble is so wide, it might as well be another world. The Lord owns the land, all of it. Every furrow you plow, every sheep you herd, every loaf you bake, it is his by right. You do not work for yourself, you work for him, and in return, you are protected. Protection means that if another lord's men come to raid your village, his knights might step in, or they might not. Either way, you owe him. His home is no cozy castle from fairy tales. Yes, it is larger than your hut, with stone walls, wooden floors, and actual furniture. But it is also cold, damp, and smoky. Fires roar in great halls, yet draughts whistle through cracks in the stone. Tapestries hang to trap warmth. But never enough. Rats skitter in corners here too, though perhaps fatter ones, feasting on richer scraps. Meals are grander, where you chew turnips. He gnaws roast meats, served on trenchers of bread thick enough to soak the grease. Wine flows, spices perfume the air, musicians play, it seems glorious, until you notice the grease-stained hands, the dogs licking bones under the table, the smoke choking the rafters. Luxury here is not clean, it is simply more abundant. The Lord's power stretches far beyond the hall. He is judge and jury, tax collector and executioner. He decides who pays, who marries, who is punished. A word from him can save a man's life, or end it. His knights enforce his will, armored and mounted, lords themselves over villagers who tremble at their approach. And yet, his life is not without fear. He worries about rival lords, about sieges that starve castles, about betrayals from within. He locks his gates, drills his men, builds walls ever higher, for even in luxury, insecurity gnaws. Still, compared to your life, his is unimaginable privilege. While you struggle to feed a family, he feasts. While you bow in church, he sits in a private pew. While you break your back in the fields, he hunts in forests you're forbidden to enter. And when you die nameless, he will be remembered, his name carved into stone, his lineage carried forward. The Lord does not labor, he commands, and his wealth built on your sweat and hunger ensures that the world will never let you forget it. If you are born into a peasant hut, your childhood is not a season of play, it is an apprenticeship in survival. From the moment you can stand without falling, you are given tasks. At 3, you chase chickens from the doorway. At 5, you carry water in buckets too heavy for your arms. At 7, you scatter seed, pull weeds, collect firewood. By 10, your hands are calloused, your back bent, your feet tough from endless miles over mud and stone. Play does exist, but it looks different. Children chase hoops, carve toys from wood, kick pig bladders, stuffed like balls. They wrestle, they sing, they mimic their parents' work. But always, their play is shadowed by duty. A game ends the moment, a goat escapes, or the fire needs feeding. Childhood is never a sanctuary, it is a rehearsal for labor. Education is rare. Schools belong to monasteries or towns, far away from the lives of peasants. If you are lucky, a priest may teach you prayers, perhaps a few letters. More often, you will never hold a quill, never trace a word across parchment. Knowledge is for those with coin, not for those with mud on their knees. And danger stalks every child. Disease strikes first. Fevers, coughs, and contaminated food sweep through families. And nearly half of all children die before the age of 5. Mothers weep often, fathers dig small graves, siblings vanish in the night. Childhood here is brief, fragile, always at risk. If you survive, you are useful. That is your worth. You can carry, you can weed, you can spin wool, you can watch siblings, you can earn your keep. There is no adolescence, no long stretch of discovery. you pass from child to worker with little in between. At 12, you might be apprenticed if your family can spare you. At 14, you might be married, a parent yourself. For noble children, life is no gentler. Sons are trained for war, wielding wooden swords before they can write their names. Daughters are groomed for marriage, their bodies bartered as alliances. They may eat better, sleep warmer, live longer, but the weight of expectation crushes them too. And through it all, laughter still survives. Children sing in the fields, chase dogs through the mud, invent games from scraps of bone and bits of cloth. Their joy is small, fleeting, but it pierces the gloom like candlelight. For even in the harshest world, children find ways to play, until the world insists they grow. The year grinds on, work, prayer, hunger, fear, but even the hardest lives crave release. And so, every now and then, the village erupts into noise, color, and chaos. Festivals arrive, not often, but when they do, they are remembered for years. Most are tied to the church calendar. Feast days for saints, holy days for martyrs, celebrations of Christ's birth or resurrection. Others mark the turning of seasons, the harvest, the planting. These are not just parties, they are survival rituals, moments when the village remembers that life is not only toil. The streets, usually quiet and muddy, fill with people. Musicians play pipes and drums, jugglers toss balls and knives. Fools in motley leap and jest, mocking lords and priests. Under the thin shield of tradition, masks are worn, costumes donned, and for a single day, the usual rules bend. A beggar might wear a crown of straw, a child might lead a parade. Food flows, at least for some, roasted meats, rare spices, barrels of ale, tapped and poured without measure. For peasants, it may be the only time they taste more than turnips in a year. For nobles, it is a chance to flaunt wealth, hosting feasts so lavish, they blur the line between celebration and gluttony. Games unfold in the fields. Wrestling matches, races, mock battles with sticks. Sometimes brutal, sometimes comic, but always with a crowd roaring approval. Gambling thrives. Dice tossed, coins wagered, chickens staked as prizes, and drink. Always drink. Allah, stronger now than the daily brew, flows freely. Men stagger, women laugh, children gape at the chaos. Fights break out, kisses are stolen, songs slur into the night. For a moment, hardship is forgotten, and life feels louder, wilder, freer, but the church watches closely. Festivals are permitted, but only so far. Too much laughter, too much freedom, too much inversion of order, and the priests frown. After all, joy too easily tips into sin. And sin, they remind everyone, invites punishment. Still, when the drums pound, when the fools leap, when torches flare against the night sky, the village lets itself believe, if only for an evening, that life is more than hunger and work. That for one day, even in mud and rags, people can feel alive. And then morning comes, and the bell rings, and the fields call once again. The festival torches die out, the songs fade, and once again the night settles heavy over the village. In the Middle Ages, darkness is not just absence of light, it is its own world, thick, frightening, and alive with dangers. There are no street lamps, no lanterns glowing warmly in windows. When the fire dies, blackness presses in, absolute and suffocating. A candle flickers only inches of light, and its fat smoke lingers. Most nights, you don't even try. You let the dark wind curling into your straw bed, listening with every sense heightened. Because the dark is not empty. Wolves howl in the distance, their cries echoing through the trees. Owls screech, foxes bark, dogs growl low at shadows. Bandits move more easily by night. So do neighbors with grudges, settling scores under the cover of silence. A knock at the door after sunset is never good news. The imagination fills the rest. Ghosts of the unburied, witches stealing into huts, demons crouching in corners. Every superstition grows sharper at night. Children shiver, adults whisper prayers, and the line between real threat and imagined terror blurs. Even indoors, the dark is thick. Families lie side by side on the floor, breath mingling, bodies pressed together for warmth. You hear the wheeze of a cough, the whimper of a child, the rustle of lice. Sleep is not peace. It is simply surrender, one eye always half open, ears straining for trouble. Time stretches differently here. Without clocks, without steady flame, night feels endless. You measure its progress by the cold deepening, the fire sputtering, the rooster stirring too soon. And when at last the first grey light creeps through the thatch, it feels less like dawn and more like survival. The night has passed, you are still alive, and the bell will ring again. The rooster crows, the bell tolls, and yet again the village stirs. Another day begins. You rise from the same damp straw, you tug on the same itchy wool, you scratch at the same crawling lice. And as you stretch your aching back, you feel it, the weight of life here. Not the weight of this morning only, but of every morning before, and every morning yet to come. The days blur into one another. There is always labor, always hunger, always some new ache in your body. The fields demand, the animals bleat, the Lord expects his due, and the church reminds you of sin. There is never a moment when the world lets you simply be. You are pulled in every direction, and yet always toward the same end, survival, bare and unadorned. Your hands are stiff, cracked with blisters, and swollen knuckles. Your nails are dark, with dirt that never washes away. Your shoulders feel older than your years, carved by years of bending, lifting, dragging. You are 25, and your body already creaks, like you are twice that. Your hair is thinning, your teeth ache, your skin is marked by sun and wind. Life here ages you fast. And yet, as you walk through the village, you see the same story written on every face. Men stooped with toil, women carrying children and buckets both. Children already pressed into service. The old lean on sticks, eyes clouded, breath shallow. This is not a world where individuals stand apart. It is a collective grind, a shared rhythm of suffering. But within that sameness, within that crushing predictability, there are moments that gleam faintly, like candlelight behind thick smoke. A child's giggle, breaking through the sound of scraping hose and bleating goats. A neighbor slipping you a scrap of onion to brighten your endless pottage. A woman humming a tune while hanging out ragged linens, her voice rising soft and clear above the mud. Laughter exists here, jokes whispered, stories told, songs sung around smoky fires. You tease one another about lice, about crooked backs, about the absurdity of life. It does not erase the hardship, but it bends it just slightly, into something that can be endured. Even in the most joyless landscape, humanity insists on finding sparks. Faith helps too. For all its strictness, its threats of hellfire, religion also provides rhythm and ritual. The bells that drag you awake also mark the hours, dividing time into something manageable. The priest's sermons, heavy with warning, are also stories, reminders that your pain is not only yours, that it ties into some larger narrative. You do not always believe, but you always listen, because what else is there? The seasons, too, give shape to life. Winter's hunger, spring's planting, summer's toil, autumn's harvest. Each year repeats itself, as if the world is caught in its own circle. The cycle is exhausting, yes, but it is also the only certainty you have. And within that rhythm lies a strange comfort. Tomorrow will be like today, and the day after that. And though it is hard, it is also familiar. As you step outside, you look across the fields. The mist lingers low, curling over furrows of soil. The bell still rings, its iron voice echoing. Somewhere, a rooster crows again. Smoke rises from huts, thin trails against the grey sky. And in this moment, you see the world as it is. Not beautiful, not kind, but enduring. The weight of the day is heavy. The weight of all days is heavier still, but you shoulder it, because you must. You laugh when you can, you sing when you dare, you share when you're able. That is how life continues. Not through joy, not through ease, but through stubborn persistence. And as you turn back toward your hut, the fields waiting once more, you remind yourself, night will come again, the fire will glow again, and in the flicker of that light, for however brief a moment, you will find peace. Evening settles over the village, slow and heavy. The sun sinks, its last rays stretched thin across the crooked rooftops. Smoke rises from hearths, drifting into the dimming sky. Shadows lengthen, and with them, the day gives way to something softer, though no less haunting, the sounds of night. It begins with silence, but not the silence of modern nights, where machines fade and windows block the world. This silence is alive. You hear every detail, because there is nothing to drown it out. No hum of electricity, no whir of cars, no buzz of distant traffic, just the raw world, unfiltered. From one hut comes the murmur of prayer, voices low, steady, the Latin words half understood but repeated with devotion. From another the sound of coughing, harsh and wet, carried into the night, as if sickness itself wants to remind the village it has not left. Children cry briefly, soothed by tired mothers, then fall into uneasy sleep. Beyond the huts, the animals speak. Chickens cluck softly, shifting on their perches. Pigs snort and root in the dirt. Dogs bark at shapes unseen, their growls sharp, their ears tuned to dangers in the dark. Goats bleat, restless, as if they too feel the weight of the coming night. The natural world presses closer. Crickets hum in the grass. Frogs croak in muddy ditches. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls, long and mournful, answered by others, deeper in the forest. The sound slides into your bones, reminding you of teeth and hunger that wait just beyond the firelight. And then there are the noises you can't explain. A creak on the roof, though no one is climbing. A rustle in the corner, too large for a rat. A whisper of wind that almost sounds like words. In a world where superstition rules, every unexplained sound belongs to something. Spirits of the unburied, demons on the prowl, witches stirring their cauldrons. You shiver though you tell yourself, it's only the night settling. Inside the hut, fire pops and crackles, sparks briefly illuminating the smoke-filled air. A spoon clatters against a bowl, a child stirs, mutters in a dream. Someone snores. These tiny sounds, so ordinary, feel vast in the darkness. Each one is magnified, echoing in your ears, as you lie awake, half listening, half drifting. And through it all, the church bell tolls. Even now, even in the dead of night, it marks the hours. Its slow, heavy clang is not just sound, it is time itself, reminding you that dawn will come, even if the night feels endless. The village breathes in unison, coughing, murmuring, snoring, whispering. And as you lie there, eyes open to the blackness above, you realize that sound is the only map you have of the night. You cannot see, but you can hear, and what you hear reminds you that life, fragile and uneasy, continues all around you. The sounds of the night surround you, low murmurs, distant howls, the restless stirrings of animals. But it is not the noise that unsettles you most. It is the darkness itself. In the Middle Ages, darkness is not simply absence of light. It is a presence, a force, something you feel pressing down on your skin like a damp cloak. When the fire burns low and the candle sputters, the blackness is complete. Not the soft grey of city nights, not the faint glow of street lamps or moonlight spilling past curtains. Here, night is thick, total. The stars may shine, the moon may rise, but clouds and smoke often swallow them. You cannot see your hand before your face. You cannot see the straw at your feet. And when you cannot see, your mind begins to fill the void. Every creak of the roof becomes footsteps. Every sigh of the wind becomes a whisper. Shapes form in the corner of your eye, tall, thin, hunched, reaching, but vanish when you turn. You know logically, it is only shadow, but logic is weak when your world has no light. Superstition thrives in this blackness. The souls of the unburied wander here, restless, peering in through cracks. Witches slip through doors to curse children in their sleep. Demons perch above rafters, waiting for the moment you stop muttering prayers. Even saints are said to walk the night, glowing faintly, reminders that heaven too has eyes in the dark. Practical dangers are no less frightening. A fire could spark unnoticed, devouring huts before anyone wakes. A thief could slip inside, knife drawn, face unseen. A wolf could nose open a weak door. A child might stir, step outside, and vanish into the fields before anyone knows they're gone. And so families cling to fire. Even a few glowing embers feel like armor. The hearth is banked, carefully, so that coals remain warm until dawn. The candle stub is saved, lit only if fear outweighs thrift. Every scrap of light is hoarded like treasure, because without it the night is too heavy to bear. Sleep comes slowly, eyes close, open again, darting toward imagined movement. A prayer is whispered, a hand crosses a chest, a charm hangs from a beam to ward off what prowls. Some nights you do sleep, slipping into uneasy dreams. Other nights you lie awake, counting breaths, waiting for the faintest grey of dawn to prove the dark has not won. In this world, the sun is not just warmth, it is salvation, and until it rises, you lie in the grip of a darkness that feels endless. At last exhaustion pulls you under. Your body can only resist for so long before it surrenders, collapsing into the shallow rest that passes for sleep here. But in the Middle Ages, sleep is not peaceful. It is restless, broken, and thick with dreams. Your bed is straw, lumpy and alive with fleas. You toss, turn, scratch, and shift, but there is no comfortable position. Smoke lingers in your lungs. The cold seeps into your bones. Beside you, family members snore, cough, murmur in dreams of their own. Sleep is not private here. Your entire household slumbers in the same space, sometimes with livestock nearby. The sound is a symphony of breathing, snorting, rustling. Sleep itself comes in two parts, though you don't know the term for it. First, sleep carries you from dusk into midnight. Then you stir, waking for an hour or two, lying in the dark, whispering prayers, or tending the fire. Sometimes you talk quietly with your family, sometimes you simply listen to the silence. Then comes second sleep, carrying you from the middle of the night until dawn. It is not one long stretch of rest, but two halves, stitched together by the dark. And then there are the dreams. Dreams are not just stray images of the mind. They are messages, omens, warnings. A dream of clear water may signal fortune. A dream of wolves may herald death. A dream of fire may mean sin burns in your soul. Every vision is discussed, interpreted, sometimes feared. To dream is to glimpse another world, one that feels no less real than your own. Nightmares strike often. You dream of plague carts, of fields of bones, of demons crouching at your bed. You dream of drowning in the muddy river, or of being lost in a forest where the trees whisper your name. You wake, heart racing, unsure if you've truly escaped. And yet, sometimes, there are gentler dreams, of sunlight on fields, of feasts where food never runs out, of loved ones long buried smiling once more. These too feel real, and for a moment, you carry their warmth into the waking world. Dreams are not dismissed as tricks of the mind. They are shared in the morning, analyzed like scripture. They guide decisions, warn of dangers, shape the way people see their lives. They are woven into faith, into superstition, into the very rhythm of existence. So you sleep, if it can be called that. Half rest, half vision, body tossing, mind wandering through landscapes, both strange and familiar. And when at last the cock crows and the bell tolls, you wake not refreshed, but simply shifted from one kind of exhaustion to another. You rise again, though you never truly rested, and the first thing that greets you is not light, nor sound, but smell. In the Middle Ages, the air itself is a burden. Every breath carries 1,000 stories, and none of them are pleasant. Your hut reeks. The fire has smoldered all night, filling the room with bitter smoke that stings your eyes and clings to your hair. The straw mattress beneath you smells of sweat, of damp, of the animals that have nested there before. Lice and fleas leave behind their own faint musk, sour and sharp like iron. Step outside, and the world offers no relief. The street is a sewer, lined with waste, tossed from windows. Human, animal, it doesn't matter. It all flows together, soaking into mud, trickling toward the river. The stench of dung is constant, so constant that you no longer register it fully. It simply is the background of life. But other scents rise sharply above it, the sour tang of spoiled ale spilling from a mug, the sweet rotten note of meat left too long in the sun, the acrid punch of tanning pits, where animal hides are scraped and soaked in urine to soften them. Each workshop, each trade adds its signature to the air, and together they weave a tapestry that no candle can mask. Illness has its own smell, too, the sweet, sickly scent of fever sweat, the foul breath of rotting teeth, the copper tang of blood, thick in the air after punishment or childbirth. Death lingers in the nostrils long after the body is gone. There are moments of reprieve, fleeting and fragile. A field of hay, freshly cut, carrying its grassy sweetness on the wind. A loaf of bread, pulled warm from the oven, rare but glorious. A patch of herbs crushed beneath your heel, releasing their fragrance, as if to remind you that not everything stinks. But these are sparks against a flood. The stink always wins. Perfume does exist, but only for the wealthy, oils and waters steeped with roses, lavender, musk. To peasants, such smells are legends, stories told about nobles who walk in gardens you'll never see. For you, the closest thing to perfume is smoke that clings less harshly when the wood is dry. And so you breathe deep, not because it is pleasant, but because you must. The air is foul, yes, but it is also life. You learn to live with it, to push it to the background, to let your senses dull until only the sharpest notes break through. In this world, you never escape the smells. They follow you, seep into your clothes, your hair, your very skin. And when you dream of paradise, it is not of golden towers or endless feasts. It is of clean air, air that carries nothing but silence. Close your eyes, and you could almost navigate the Middle Ages by sound alone. For though sight may be clouded by smoke or shadow, and smell forever clogged with filth, the ears are always full, held. The world here is never quiet. First, the bell. Always the bell. Its iron voice marks the hours, commands the faithful, calls the weary to rise, to pray, to mourn, to gather. It echoes across the village, bouncing off fields and forests, a constant reminder that time belongs not to you, but to God, and to those who rule in His name. Then the animals, chickens clucking and scratching, pigs squealing as they root in the mud, cows lowing with heavy udders, waiting to be milked. Dogs bark warnings, goats bleat stubbornly, horses stamp and snort. Their sounds blend into a background chorus, equal parts farm and chaos. The human noises join in, feet slapping mud, wooden wheels creaking under loads of hay or dung, women calling children back from mischief, babies crying, mothers soothing, men shouting over fields, laughter bursts occasionally, rough and brief, punctuating the work. Quarrels too, neighbors snapping about land, animals, insults half forgotten but never forgiven. Trades add their own layers. The clang of a blacksmith's hammer, striking iron, ringing sharp across the village. The rasp of a saw through timber, the dull thud of an axe on wood. Bakers pounding dough, potters shaping clay, with wet slaps. Weavers sending their looms clacking in steady rhythm. And then the market. A cacophony all its own. Vendors shout prices, hawking fish that still smell of river, bread still steaming, cloth dyed in earthy tones. Coins clink, chickens squawk in baskets, buyers argue, sellers curse. A thief's cry goes up, followed by the pounding of feet, the scuffle of bodies. Music might even play, pipes, drums, fiddles scraping out a tune, as dancers stomp their feet into mud. Evenings bring a different soundscape. The crackle of fire, the murmur of prayer, the creak of wooden beds under tired bodies. Snoring fills huts, coughing interrupts, whispers stretch across darkness. From outside, the night animals answer, owls hooting, wolves howling, insects buzzing in the long grass. And woven into it all is silence, rare, fragile, but present. The hush after the bell stops tolling. The pause in the fields when everyone lifts their heads at once to watch clouds gather. The sudden stillness when a predator prowls at the edge of the village. These silences are not peace. They are warnings. They make the noises feel sharper when they return. The sounds of medieval life are rough, loud, relentless. They are not gentle background, not music to soothe, but reminders that life is always in motion, always laboring, always teetering between survival and collapse. And when you close your eyes at night, the sounds do not vanish. They follow you into sleep, reshaping themselves into dreams, until the bell rings again to start it all anew. In the Middle Ages, clothing is more than protection from the weather. It is identity, status, law, and punishment, all stitched into a single itchy package. The first thing anyone notices about you is what you wear, because in this world your clothes scream louder than your words. For peasants there is no choice. Your outfit is the same day in, day out. A coarse wool tunic, undyed or perhaps stained brown or grey, with cheap plant dyes. A rough linen shift underneath, if you're lucky, hose stitched from scraps, often patched and sagging. Leather shoes, stiff and splitting, if you even own them. The fabric scratches, holds dirt, and never quite dries once it's wet. You smell of sweat, smoke, and livestock, and your clothing clings to you as much as your fleas do. Nobles dress differently, not simply for warmth, but to display power. Bright colors are reserved for them, deep reds, rich blues, glowing yellows. These dyes cost fortunes, carried from distant lands, so vivid cloth is a badge of wealth. Nobles wear long gowns, fur-lined cloaks, embroidered sleeves that trail extravagantly across the floor. Shoes are pointed, hats tall, belts gilded. The richer the fabric, the higher the rank. Velvet, silk, satin, these are treasures. Wearing them proclaims you belong at the top, but fashion is not free. Laws called sumptuary laws dictate what you can and cannot wear. A peasant found in silk risks fines, humiliation, even arrest. Clothing is policed as strictly as crime, because if the poor begin to dress like the rich, the entire fragile hierarchy collapses. The stitch on your sleeve can condemn you as quickly as a theft. Clothing also carries symbolism. The church frowns on vanity, so too much ornament is condemned as sin. Monks wear rough habits, grey or black, as a rejection of pride. Widows wear dark clothing, their grief made visible. Brides wear their best gown, whatever color it happens to be. White is not tradition yet. Even executioners wear hoods, clothing meant to turn them into symbols of fear rather than men. But no matter your status, discomfort unites everyone. Nobles sweat beneath fur-lined robes. Peasants itch beneath wool. Everyone smells of smoke and sweat. Lice do not care if your tunic is velvet or sackcloth. They feast on all alike, and laundry is agony for all. Scrubbing with lye that burns skin, beating fabric against stones, drying it in sun that may vanish before the task is done. Your clothing, then, is not self-expression. It is survival, and sometimes a shackle. It declares what you are, whether you wish it or not. To wear finery without right is to invite punishment. To wear rags is simply to show truth. And at the end of the day, whether noble or peasant, your body itches, your skin reddens, your garments stiffen with dirt. So when you pull your tunic over your head each morning, it is not fashion, it is fate. Food is never just food in the Middle Ages. It is a map of class, faith, and fortune. What you eat, when you eat, how you eat. Every bite tells a story about who you are and how precarious your life is. For peasants, meals are monotonous. Day after day, pottage bubbles in the pot, a stew of grains, beans, and root vegetables, flavored only by smoke and desperation. Bread is the second staple, but not the fluffy loaves you might picture. It is heavy, coarse, often baked with fillers, like bark or ground peas, to stretch precious flour. Meat is rare, saved for feast days or stolen in secret hunts. Dairy appears occasionally, but sour milk and pungent cheese are more common than fresh cream. Hunger is constant, variety non-existent. Nobles dine differently. their tables groaning with food, meant to show wealth more than satisfy hunger. Platters of roasted swan, venison, boar, spices glitter across dishes, cinnamon, pepper, saffron, nutmeg, all more expensive than gold, imported from distant lands. Sauces disguise meat that is not as fresh as it looks, but presentation matters more than taste. Feasts are displays of power. A noble doesn't simply eat, he demonstrates his wealth in every morsel. Religion governs the table as much as wealth does. The church dictates fasting days, which are many, sometimes nearly half the year. On these days, meat is forbidden, replaced by fish. For the poor, fasting means little. They rarely taste meat anyway. For the rich, it becomes another excuse to flaunt excess, commissioning elaborate fish dishes to prove devotion while still indulging. Seasons shape the diet too. In summer you may eat fresh peas, beans and berries. In autumn, apples, pears and nuts. But winter and early spring bring the hungry gap, when last year's stores run out and new crops have yet to ripen. Bellies tighten, meals shrink, hunger sharpens. It is the cruelest season, when the weak die quietly in corners, and families pray for the fields to green again. Food carries danger as well. Spoiled meat, riddled with maggots, still makes it to the pot. Mold creeps into bread. Rye infected with ergot causes convulsions, hallucinations, even death. People eat anyway, because hunger is stronger than fear. At feasts, nobles gorge themselves until sickness. At markets, peasants scrape for crumbs. At monasteries, monks chant grace before meals, as bowls of simple stew steam before them, and everywhere the same truth lingers. Food is not pleasure, it is survival. And yet, on rare nights when a feast spreads across the table, even for peasants, at weddings or festivals, the joy is real. Plates of roasted goose, cheese, ale poured freely. For a moment, hunger loosens its grip. People laugh louder, sing longer, dance harder. They know tomorrow the pot will return to its watery pottage. But tonight, the table feels rich, and life feels more than survival. In the Middle Ages, you live not from meal to meal, but from hunger to hunger. And sometimes, only the memory of a feast is enough to carry you through. If food is uncertain, drink is even more treacherous. In the Middle Ages, thirst is not quenched by water, not safely. A clear stream might sparkle in the sunlight, but you know better. Upstream lies a latrine, a rotting carcass, a tanner's pit, pouring waste into the current. To drink water raw is to gamble with your life. Dysentery, fever, worms, it's all waiting in a single careless sip. And so ale rules the table, not the golden frothy brew of taverns today, but small ale, weak, cloudy, barely alcoholic, brewed from barley and oats, boiled enough to kill off some of the invisible dangers lurking in the water. It is thin, sour, and far from refreshing, but it is safe. Children drink it, pregnant women drink it, monks drink it by the gallon. From dawn to dusk, ale is what keeps you alive. In towns, every household brews its own. Women tend the ale, stirring vats, straining mash, filling jugs. Taverns exist, but most people cannot afford to linger there. The tavern is for travelers, for merchants, for those with a few coins to spare. For peasants, ale is homemade, stored in clay pots, drunk from wooden cups that never quite lose their smell. Wine flows more rarely. In southern Europe, vineyards flourish, and nobles sip from goblets, while priests consecrate chalices. But in the north, wine is exotic, imported, expensive. To taste it is to taste wealth itself. A peasant might live and die, without ever touching a drop. And then there are stronger drinks. Mead, made from honey, is sweet but costly, a luxury for weddings and feasts. Distilled spirits are still in their infancy, brewed in alchemical experiments, rather than taverns. The era of whiskey and brandy has not yet come. Drinking, like eating, is bound by religion. Fast days require abstinence from indulgence, but ale is too necessary to forbid. Even monks brew, perfecting recipes that sustain their communities. In some monasteries, the daily allowance of ale per monk is several liters, enough to keep bellies full when food is scarce. But ale is not free from peril. Brew gone bad turns sour, undrinkable. Overindulgence, though rare for peasants, leads to drunken quarrels, fists in the mud, knives flashing in the dark. Drunkenness is condemned as sin, but sometimes sin is the only relief from misery. So you lift your cup, not with joy, but with resignation. The ale tastes of earth, of grain, of damp wood. It does not refresh, it does not delight. But it will not kill you, and in this world, that is enough. Drink is not pleasure here. Drink is survival, one swallow at a time. In the Middle Ages, you do not own your body in the way you think of it now. You inhabit it, you endure it, you drag it from dawn to dusk, but it is less a temple and more a tool, worn down with every passing year. From childhood, your body is put to work. Muscles strain from hauling, bending, cutting, carrying, joints stiffen early. By 20, you already feel old. By 40, if you reach it, you are ancient, bent double, teeth gone, eyes dim, pain is constant, not sharp, not sudden, though accidents bring that too, but dull, throbbing, grinding pain. Your back aches from ploughing. Your hands burn with blisters that turn to calluses. Your feet split and crack from endless hours on rough ground. You live in pain so long that you forget what it feels like to be without it. Injuries come often. A slip with a scythe, a fall in the mud, a broken bone from lifting too much. There are no hospitals, no doctors who heal, only barber surgeons with knives, or family members who bind wounds with cloth and prayers. Many injuries never heal properly. Bones set crooked, wounds fester, infections creep. What would be a nuisance today could cripple you for life. Teeth rot early, making every meal an ordeal. Eyes fail from smoke and strain, turning tasks into fumbling guesses. Hearing dulls under the constant din of animals and bells. Age is not kind, but even youth carries its burdens. Women's bodies bear the heaviest toll. Childbirth is agony, often fatal. Surviving one pregnancy is a relief. Surviving 5 is a miracle. Mothers grow thin, their strength drained. Their lives cut short while their children cling to their skirts. And yet, bodies endure. They keep going, staggering forward, powered not by luxury but by sheer necessity. You do not stop working because you are tired. You do not rest because your back screams. To stop is to starve. To falter is to die. Survival is written into every ache, every scar, every wrinkle. There is little vanity. Beauty is health, skin unmarked by disease, limbs still strong, eyes still clear. To have all your teeth, to carry a child safely, to work without stumbling, this is as close as you come to perfection. The body is not trusted either. Its cravings are called sinful, its desires dangerous. Priests warn against indulgence, against pleasure, against listening too closely to the flesh. The body must be controlled, denied, restrained, while at the same time it is expected to labor endlessly. And so you endure it. A body that aches, cracks, bleeds, and still rises at dawn. A body that betrays you slowly, but never lets you quit. You do not admire it. You do not celebrate it. You simply survive in it, until it gives out. In this world, your body is not who you are. It is how you keep going. In the modern world, death is something hidden, softened, delayed as long as possible. But in the Middle Ages, death is not rare. It is not distant. It is everywhere, all the time, an expected guest at every table. Children die first, and often. Half of all infants never see their 5th birthday. Fever, bad milk, infection, famine. They claim the youngest with cruel efficiency. Families bury child after child, digging small graves until grief becomes routine. A mother weeps, a father sighs, a priest mutters prayers, and life goes on. Adults die young too. A cut that festers, a cough that lingers, a childbirth gone wrong. To reach 30 is common. To reach 40 is fortunate. To reach 50 is rare. Old age is not a stage of life. It is an achievement few see. And when death comes, it is rarely gentle. It comes with pain, with fever, with coughing blood, with swelling, with convulsions. Plague takes thousands in a single week, black boils bursting, whole families gone by dawn. War leaves bodies scattered in mud, nameless, unburied. Hunger starves quietly, leaving hollow eyes and wasted limbs. Death does not hide. Corpses lie in streets when graveyards overflow. Bonindri surface in fields where shallow burials erode. Priests chant over pits where dozens are lowered together. The smell of rot drifts into homes, carried by wind and memory. You live among reminders that your turn is never far, and yet death is also ritualized. The church presides over it, promising paradise or punishment. Bells toll to announce it. Candles burn to guide souls onward. The dying are anointed with oils, whispered last rites to ease their passage. Mourning is prescribed, black clothing, prayers, fasting. Even grief is measured, controlled. Superstition thrives here too. Ghosts of the unburied wander, restless. Spirits of the wronged demand vengeance. Charms are hung above doors, prayers scrawled on parchment, holy water sprinkled to keep the dead from lingering too close. For nobles, death brings legacy, tombs carved in stone, names etched into history, masses sung for souls. For peasants it brings silence, their names forgotten within a generation. A wooden cross, a shallow grave, and then the earth swallows them back. But whether rich or poor, peasant or lord, one truth remains. Death is ordinary. It does not shock. It does not surprise. It comes as naturally as hunger, as rain, as the tolling of the bell. And so you live not with fear of death, but with certainty of it. Every cough, every cut, every hunger pang reminds you one day, sooner than you'd like, the bell will toll for you. When death arrives in the Middle Ages, it does not slip quietly past. It is ritualized, public, and wrapped in faith. For in a world where life is fragile, what comes after death is not simply comfort. It is the only hope that makes sense of suffering. The body is laid out quickly. There are no embalming chemicals, no refrigeration, nothing to delay decay. Death stinks, and so funerals come fast. The corpse is washed, dressed in a simple shroud, sometimes sprinkled with holy water. Coins might be placed over the eyes, not for a ferryman, though old pagan whispers linger, but to keep the lids closed. Neighbors gather, bells toll, the priest arrives, carrying candles and prayers. The mass of the dead is sung, chants echoing against stone walls or across the open air of a small churchyard. Latin words few understand, yet all believe. The soul, it is said, hangs near, waiting to be guided onward by ritual. Without it, the dead risk wandering, restless and dangerous. Burial follows swiftly. For peasants, a shallow grave in consecrated ground, marked with a wooden cross that will not last the season. For nobles, a carved tomb within the church, their names and faces etched into stone, candles burning in memory. Some are buried with relics, charms, even bits of wealth, though priests frown on such lingering attachments. The graveyard itself is crowded, bodies stacked in layers, bones resurfacing when earth shifts or graves are dug anew. Ossuaries gather skulls and femurs, neat stacks of the anonymous dead. Children play among them, unbothered. Death is not separate from life. It lies side by side with it, a daily reminder. And yet, the true weight of burial is not the grave. It is what people believe lies beyond it. Heaven and hell are vivid here, described in detail from pulpit and song. Heaven is light, song eternal peace, in the presence of God. Hell is fire, torment, endless screams. Purgatory stretches between, a place of cleansing pain, where souls suffer until prayers from the living ease their way upward. The church profits from this belief. Masses are sold for souls, indulgences purchased to shorten purgatory. Families scrape together, coins to buy a priest's intercession, hoping to soften eternity for their loved ones. The poor pray harder, the rich pay more, but both fear the same fate. Superstitions blur the edges. Some bury charms with the dead to protect them. Some leave food at graves to feed wandering spirits. Some whisper that the dead return if wronged, knocking at doors, haunting dreams, refusing peace until justice is done. So when the earth is shoveled over the body, when the bell tolls its last, you do not think the story is finished. You think it has just changed chapters. The body lies still, but the soul moves on, to paradise, to torment, or to linger, unseen, in the night around you. And as you pass the churchyard, hearing the wind whistle through crooked crosses and overgrown grass, you do not need reminding. The dead are everywhere, and one day soon, you will join them. The village sleeps, but the church does not. In the stillness of night, while huts lie in smoky silence and wolves prowl the fields, the monastery stirs. For in the Middle Ages, prayer is not bound by daylight. It is a duty that stretches across all hours, even into the blackest part of the night. Within stone walls, monks rise from their hard beds at midnight, summoned by the bell. They shuffle into the chapel, bare feet on cold floors, their woolen habits scratching as they move. The air inside is damp, heavy with the smell of wax and incense. Candles flicker, shadows stretch tall against carved saints. The only sound is the creak of benches, the rustle of robes, the low murmur of Latin prayers. These are the night offices, vigils, matins, lauds, prayers offered to God when most of the world is lost in uneasy sleep. The chants are steady, rhythmic, designed not to stir, but to soothe, to lift voices in unison toward heaven. For the monks, time belongs not to themselves but to the divine. Every hour, a gift returned in prayer. The church at night feels different from the day. In daylight, it is a place of gathering, of sermon and ritual, of bells commanding the village. But in darkness, it becomes otherworldly. The flicker of candlelight makes the painted saints seem alive, their eyes glinting as if they watch. The silence outside presses against the stone, while inside, the chants echo, endless, like waves in a sea of shadow. Superstition thickens here too. It is said that at night, spirits wander closest. The souls in purgatory, restless, crying for prayer, demons prowl in corners, whispering temptations into weary ears. Some monks speak of visions, angels blazing, saints appearing, shadows moving across altars when no one stands there. To pray at night is not only devotion, it is a confrontation with all that lingers in the dark. And yet, there is peace as well. The chants lull, the candles glow, the rhythm of breath and word settles the heart. Outside, wolves howl, but inside, the stone seems to hold the world at bay. For a moment, within the church, night feels less like fear and more like eternity stretched thin, shimmering between worlds. When the prayers end, monks return to their beds, lying down again for their second sleep. The candles sputter out, the chapel grows dark, but the memory of chant lingers, even as the village coughs and snores, even as rats scurry and winds sigh. The night has been marked by voices lifted upward. And in that, the church holds its power, not just in daylight commands, but in the steady reminder that even in the deepest night, someone is always awake, watching, praying, keeping the dark at bay. The bell fades, the monks return to their beds, but outside the cloister walls, another kind of belief stirs. For while the church preaches scripture, the people cling to something older, wilder, superstition. In the Middle Ages, faith and fear walk hand in hand, and when the sun goes down, charms and whispers often feel stronger than sermons. Every household has its tokens. A sprig of herbs hung over a door to ward off evil. A scrap of parchment with a saint's name scrawled on it, pinned above the bed. An iron nail buried beneath the threshold to keep witches from crossing. These are not church teachings, but no one dares abandon them, for in the dark, when the fire burns low, such protections feel like armor. The world is alive with unseen forces, fairies that steal children, demons that ride your chest at night, spirits of the restless dead lingering at crossroads. Every strange noise is a warning, every dream an omen. If milk sours too quickly, perhaps a witch cursed the cow. If a baby cries without reason, perhaps the evil eye has fallen on it. The line between bad luck and dark magic is thin and always shifting. Witches are feared most of all. They are said to meet at night in forests, to dance with the devil, to mix potions from bones and herbs. Some believe they fly, others that they send spirits in their place. Women who live alone, midwives, herbalists, all risk suspicion. A crooked back, a sharp tongue, a glance at the wrong time. These can be enough for neighbors to whisper, and whispers grow quickly. Punishment is brutal. A suspected witch may be dragged before the village, accused without proof. Trials by water or fire decide her fate. If she drowns, she was innocent. If she floats, she is guilty. Either way, the outcome is often the same. Death by rope, by flame, by stone. Fear demands sacrifice, and superstition supplies it. Yet magic is not only terror, it is also comfort. A charm hung around a child's neck, a prayer whispered while tying a knot, a potion of herbs to soothe pain. All are forms of control in a world where so little is controllable. Even priests sometimes tolerate these practices, knowing that without them, fear might overwhelm the flock entirely. And so the night belongs as much to charms and whispers as it does to bells and prayers. You fall asleep beneath a smoky roof, clutching a carved token, or muttering a protective rhyme, half trusting God, half trusting the old ways. For in the Middle Ages, you do not choose between faith and superstition. You carry both, because survival demands it. The fire burns low, the hut settles into uneasy sleep, and still sometimes, someone must travel by night. A messenger sent to another village, a midwife summoned in a hurry, a farmer caught late in the fields. But in the Middle Ages, the road after dark is a place no one enters willingly. The paths you know by day twist into strangers by night. Without lamps, without torches beyond a flickering stub of tallow candle, the world is a black maze. Trees close in, shadows stretch, landmarks vanish. A familiar bend in the road becomes a gaping mouth. A crossroads, once ordinary, feels like a trap. You walk slowly, every step uncertain, every sound magnified. And there are always sounds. Owls screeching, foxes barking, wolves howling from the woods. Branches crack under unseen paws. Rats skitter through ditches. Your ears catch them all. Your heart pounds, and the road feels longer with every step. But animals are not the worst danger. People are. Bandits haunt the dark, knives glinting faintly in torchlight. A lone traveler is easy prey, robbed of coin, goods, even life. Sometimes they leave bodies in the mud, stripped bare for anyone to find at dawn. Then there are the stories, whispered by firelight, told as warnings, of demons waiting at crossroads, offering deals that damn your soul, of witches leading travelers astray, with phantom lights, of fairies snatching those who wander too far, of the restless dead, pulling the living down into graves that never seem to stay closed. Whether you believe or not, in the dark, every story feels true. Even the church offers little comfort here. Bells do not toll for the traveler lost in the night. Priests lock their doors. Protection lies only in charms, in whispered prayers, muttered with each fearful step. A cross clutched tightly in your hand, a word of Latin you half remember, a plea to saints you hope are listening. Most people avoid it altogether. Villages close themselves at dusk, doors barred, shutters latched. Travel waits for morning, when the sun scatters shadows, and the world feels solid again. For in the Middle Ages, night belongs not to men, but to wolves, thieves, and spirits. So if you walk the road after dark, your torch flickering in the wind, your heart racing at every sound, you know one truth: you are a trespasser in a world that does not want you here. And you pray, with every step, that dawn comes quickly. In a world of cold stone, damp straw, and endless labor, there is one thing that holds the household together: the hearth. A fire glowing at the center of a hut is not just warmth, not just light. It is life itself. Without it, the night would be unbearable. The hearth is small, often little more than a circle of stones on a dirt floor. Smoke curls upward, seeking escape through a hole in the thatched roof, though much of it lingers, filling the room with haze. Your eyes burn, your lungs ache, but the fire is worth every cough. It is the difference between warmth and freezing, between food and starvation, between safety and fear. Around it, the family gathers. The pot of pottage hangs above the flames, bubbling with its endless stew of grains and roots. Bread is warmed on stones, cheese softened at the edge. A bit of meat, rare and precious, crackles in the heat, filling the air with a smell so rich it feels almost sinful. The fire is also light. A flickering glow paints the faces of children huddled together, the furrows of parents' brows, the shadows of rafters above. It stretches only a few feet, leaving the edges of the hut in darkness, where shapes might stir unseen. But for a time, you do not look into the dark, you look into the fire. It is where stories are told, tales of saints, of kings, of heroes long past. Superstitions whispered, omens shared, laughter sometimes too, though weary and brief. The fire crackles, voices rise and fall, and for a moment the world outside fades. It is also sacred. Embers are carefully banked each night, so that the fire never truly dies. To let it go out would be disaster. Cold at dawn, no meal ready, precious kindling wasted. In some villages, fire is borrowed from neighbors. If it dies, carried home glowing on sticks or in clay pots, a fragile chain of survival. The hearth warms bones, fills bellies, chases shadows, but it cannot banish every fear. The walls still creak, wolves still howl, spirits still linger, and the fire itself is danger. A stray spark can catch thatch, and in minutes a whole village burns. Children are taught early to respect the flames, to keep their distance, to treat the fire as both protector and threat. Still, as the night deepens, you draw closer. The heat on your face, the glow on your hands, the crackle like a lullaby. Around this fire, in this smoky hut, in this small fragile circle of warmth, medieval life finds its closest thing to comfort. And as your eyes grow heavy, you realize the fire will not last forever, but for tonight, it is enough. The fire burns low, embers glowing faintly in the hearth, and now it is time to sleep. Not in privacy, not in peace, not in silence, but in a way that belongs entirely to the Middle Ages. Everyone together, crammed into the same space, with no choice but to share warmth, breath, and vermin. Beds, as you might picture them, barely exist. A peasant's bed is little more than a sack of straw, sometimes laid directly on the dirt floor, sometimes raised on rough wooden boards. The straw is old, flattened, damp, and crawling. Fleas leap, lice scuttle, mice rustle at the edges. You scratch, you swat, you sigh, and you lie down anyway, because there is no alternative. Families do not spread across separate rooms. They pile together, parents, children, sometimes grandparents, sometimes servants, even animals when the night is bitter cold. Goats and chickens might share the hut, their warmth adding to the stink, their noises interrupting your dreams. Privacy is not part of life. Every sound, every cough, every mutter in sleep is heard by all. Clothing is not changed for bed. You sleep in the same tunic you wore to work, the same hose, the same shift. Night clothes exist only for the wealthy, soft linens, or even silks, embroidered with care. But for peasants you collapse in what you have, wrapped in a heavy woolen blanket stiff with dirt and sweat. The air grows stouler as the fire fades, smoke mixing with the breath of a dozen lungs. The hut is damp, thick, and hot with too many bodies pressed close. Children toss and whimper. A baby cries, soothed with a whispered prayer. A dog growls in its sleep. A father snores like thunder, while a mother mutters her rosary under her breath. Even nobles, though they sleep in finer beds, are not spared discomfort. Mattresses stuffed with feathers mold and clump. Curtains drawn around beds trap heat, but also stifle air. Servants sleep on the floor nearby, ready to be summoned, their own rest shallow. The wealthy may have silk sheets, but they still scratch at lice, still swat at fleas, still breathe in smoke drifting from torches and hearths. Sleep is not gentle. It comes in fits, broken by coughing, by shifting, by the cries of night beyond the walls. Wolves howl, winds rattle, rain leaks through the roof. Dreams twist and churn, visions of hunger, of death, of saints and demons. You wake often, lie staring into the dark, drift again into uneasy slumber. And yet, there is a closeness to it, a family bound together not just by love but by necessity, bodies pressed side by side, sharing warmth, listening to the rhythm of one another's breathing. It is not peaceful, not comfortable, but it is survival, and in its own way it is connection. When dawn finally creeps in through the thatch, you wake sore, itching, weary, but still alive. And that, in this world, is victory enough. In the Middle Ages, time is not measured by glowing screens, ticking hands, or alarms you can set and snooze. It is marked by bells, by seasons, by the slow, patient rhythm of a world without machines. The church bell is your clock. It tolls before dawn to drag you from your straw bed. It rings again at noon, again at dusk, again in the deep night for monks at prayer. Each clang marks the passing of hours, though you do not think of them as hours. You think of them as moments between bells. Candles, too, tell time. A tallow candle burns steadily downward, its length a measure of the evening. Sand in a glass trickles, water drips in bowls, but these are luxuries, rare in peasant homes. For most, time is simpler. You rise with the sun, you work until it sets. The sky itself is your calendar, and clouds your only interruption. Seasons divide the year more sharply than any clock. Spring is planting, summer is toil, autumn is harvest, winter is hunger. Festivals punctuate these cycles, Easter with fasting, midsummer with fire, harvest with feasts. Your year is not divided into appointments and schedules. It is broken into survival tasks. You do not plan months ahead. You pray the fields do not betray you before the next harvest. For nobles, time feels broader, but no less bound. Their days revolve around hunting, feasting, politics, and war, but even they are subject to bells and seasons. Kings wait for campaigning weather before raising armies. Castles fill with smoke in winter, open into hunts in spring. Even power cannot bend the wheel of seasons. And death hovers always, bending time into urgency. You are aware of how short life is, how fragile. You do not dream of decades. You hope for next week, next spring, perhaps the birth of a child who will live long enough to work the fields beside you. Time is not an endless horizon. It is a narrow path, always under threat of ending. So the bell rings, and you rise. The bell rings, and you work. The bell rings, and you sleep. This is time in the Middle Ages, not measured, but lived, not scheduled, but endured. A cycle repeating, again and again, until one day, the bell rings for you no more. In the Middle Ages, the seasons are not background scenery. They are the law. They dictate what you eat, how you work, how you live, and sometimes, whether you live at all. Winter is the cruelest. The fields lie barren, frozen beneath hard ground. Food stores run low, and hunger gnaws. Smoke fills huts as fires struggle against the bitter cold. Frost creeps across walls, and breath fogs in the dark. Children cough endlessly. Old men wither. Women grow thin from hunger, while still nursing babies. Wolves prowl closer, older, as famine starves both beast and man. Winter is not a season of rest. It is a season of endurance. Spring brings hope, but also hardship. The hungry gap stretches from late winter into spring, when last year's food is gone, but new crops have not yet grown. Bellies remain hollow, even as fields fill with work. Planting demands back-breaking labor, turning soil, sowing seeds, praying the weather holds. Spring smells of damp earth and sweat, and every furrow dug is a wager against the whims of the sky. Summer is toil at its most merciless. The sun beats down, wool scratches, sweat soaks through. Fields must be weeded, hay cut, animals tended. The days are long, the work longer, and there is no escape from the heat. Skin blisters, backs burn, heads pound, with fever. And yet summer is also abundance. The first fruits ripen, peas and beans grow fat. berries stain lips. The land for a few brief weeks feels generous. Autumn is the moment of truth. Harvest must be gathered, quickly, completely, before frost or storms destroy it. Whole villages work from dawn until stars prick the sky, scythes swinging, carts creaking, granaries filling. If the harvest is good, there is relief, even celebration. If it fails, famine lurks at the door, once again. Autumn is a race against time, every sheaf cut another step away from starvation. And then the cycle repeats. Winter returns, hunger gnaws, spring brings back breaking labor, summer burns, autumn demands, and so on, year after year, generation after generation. There is no escape, no pause, no change, only the eternal wheel of seasons grinding onward. To modern eyes, the seasons are beauty, snowfall, blossoms, warm days, golden leaves. To a medieval villager, they are survival, measured in hunger and sweat. And yet, within that harsh cycle, there are still moments of wonder. A clear morning after snow, a field bright with wildflowers, a tree heavy with apples, branches bowing under their weight. These moments do not erase the hardship, but they remind you fleetingly why you keep going. In the Middle Ages, the seasons are not just weather, they are fate. In the Middle Ages, you are never alone, not truly. Your world is the village, and the village is everything, your family, your work, your protection, and sometimes your greatest source of trouble. Neighbors live close, their huts pressed side by side, animals bleating in shared yards, smoke rising together into the same sky. You hear each other's coughs, each other's quarrels, each other's laughter. Privacy is a luxury you do not have, and suspicion is a currency, always in circulation. The community binds itself through labor. Harvests are gathered together, fields plowed in teams, roads patched, wells dug. When the bell tolls for work, everyone answers, because no one can survive alone. If your roof caves in, neighbors lend hands to patch it. If your cow dies, perhaps a neighbor spares milk. Life here is a rope, and every person is a knot, remove one, and the whole thing frays. But the closeness cuts both ways. Gossip runs faster than water. Who is too slow in the fields? Who owes grain to the miller? Who skipped mass last Sunday, or whispered against the priest? Whose child looks suspiciously like the man next door? Rumors build into judgments, judgments into accusations, and in a world of superstition, accusations can destroy. A careless word might brand someone a thief, a heretic, even a witch. Festivals and feasts draw the village together, but so do funerals. The death of one person ripples through the whole, for in a place this small, every loss is felt. Mourning is collective, survival is collective, joy is collective. You may not like every neighbor, but their lives are tied to yours as tightly as your own blood. Hierarchy exists, even here. Some villages hold more land, more animals, more power. Some are bound in deeper debt to the Lord. But even the poorest share the same mud, the same lice, the same smoke-filled air. Community levels in its own way, pulling high and low into the same circle of endurance. And always, there is the church. It is not just a place of prayer, it is the center of the village. The priest baptizes, marries, buries. The bell marks your hours. The graveyard holds your ancestors. Faith is not private, it is communal, enforced by the eyes of your neighbors and the words of your priest. Community is survival. Without it, you starve. Without it, you are unprotected. Without it, you vanish. And yet within it, you are never free. Every act is witnessed, every choice weighed, every misstep remembered. In the Middle Ages, to belong is to live, to be cast out is to die. The fire has burned low, the pot of pottage scraped clean, the hut grown quiet, save for the rustle of straw and the breath of sleeping bodies. The bell has rung its final note for the night, and with it, the day draws to a close. You sit in the dim glow of embers, your body heavy, your mind dull with exhaustion, the aches in your back, the scratches on your skin, the hunger that never quite fades, all blur together into a single weight pressing down. Tomorrow promises nothing different. The fields will call again, The church will demand again. The Lord will take again. And still you will rise. Because that is life here, not a choice, but an endless rhythm. Before bed, you whisper a prayer. Everyone does. Even if your faith wavers, even if you doubt the priest's words, you do not risk sleep without it. You cross yourself, murmur a plea for protection, ask forgiveness for sins you may not even know you've committed. The night is too dangerous to face without divine armor. The family lies close, tangled together under rough woolen blankets, children pressed between parents, animals shifting nearby. You listen to their breathing, uneven, broken by coughs, but steady enough to reassure. For all its misery, for all its toil, this closeness is its own kind of comfort. You do not live alone, and you do not sleep alone. The hut creaks, the wind rattles the thatch, wolves howl in the distance. Shadows stretch along the walls, flickering with the dying glow of the hearth. Your eyes grow heavy, but still you fight them, watching the last ember fade, fearing what may move in the dark when it finally dies. And then at last, you surrender. Not peacefully, not joyfully, but because your body can do no more. You sink into the straw, scratch at one last bite, murmur one last prayer. The day is over, the night has you now, and so the day ends. Not in peace, not in plenty, but in the restless surrender of a body that can endure no more. The fire has guttered out, the hut has gone silent, and darkness presses in. Tomorrow will come as it always does, with bells, with toil, with hunger, with prayer. The cycle turns, the seasons grind forward, the wheel of life and death never stops. You have walked the mud paths, tasted the bitter ale, scratched at the fleas, felt the bite of winter and the burn of summer. You have heard the bells, smelled the smoke, feared the shadows. You have lived, for a short while, the life of the ordinary people of the Middle Ages, the ones whose names were never written down, but whose labor built the world we now stand on. It is not the fairy tale, it is not romance, it is mud, smoke, blood, and endurance. And yet, within it, there were sparks, laughter shared in fields, a child's giggle by the fire, a moment of song rising above toil. Humanity clung even here, stubborn and unyielding. As you drift back to your own world, your own room, your own quiet, I hope you carry a fragment of that time with you. Not the misery only, but the resilience. Not the darkness only, but the way even the smallest flame could light it. Thank you for walking with me through this world, candle in hand. If you found comfort in this journey, if these slow wanderings through the past bring you peace, I'd love for you to subscribe, so we can keep sharing nights like this. Gentle stories, soft histories, shadows that ease you toward rest. And now, the candle burns low. The room grows still. Take one last breath, let it out slowly, and let your own night enfold you. Tomorrow you'll wake in your own bed, in your own time, with warmth and comfort these people never knew. But for now, close your eyes. Rest, good night, friend.